Before history is written, it's played. Before it's frozen in time, it's fought one shift at a time. Before it's etched in silver, it's carved in ice. What happens next will last forever. The Stanley Cup Final on ABC and ESPN Plus begins Saturday.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. It's game time. This is The Game on News Radio.
Well, before we get to baseball, I want to give a shout to a former Cat. Adrian Martinez, earlier today, as a matter of fact, this was officially announced 7 minutes ago, is the United Football League MVP.
Martinez.
Rushed for 528. That's just getting started. Third best passer, 1,749 yards, and tied for the second in passing touchdowns with 15. Also number 2 in the UFL in total offense, 2,277. He was responsible for 18 touchdowns, 15 passing, 3 rushing, tied for the most in the UFL. They don't list his interceptions in here, but I remember looking this up a couple of weeks ago. He had barely thrown any, like 1 or 2 at that point.
It got into a bit of a turnover mess this weekend, I know.
Well, I wasn't watching, but I knew they were playing their conference championship game to get to the championship, which is this weekend. And his team, the Birmingham Stallions, were down like 18-0 or something like that. And they had to battle back and win that game. They just kind of slowly chipped away with some big plays, some field goals, and then, yeah, they were able to take the lead in the second half and win the contest. And Adrian and his Birmingham Stallions are in the UFL championship game, which will be this Sunday from the Dome of America Center in St. Louis against the San Antonio Brahmas,
who upset the Battlehawks. Screwed up St. Louis's bid to be hosting their own game.
Yeah, they could have. Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the game, Mitch Fortner and Troy Coverdale.
By the way, that would be the Wade coached Brahmas.
Oh, really?
Yes, he's coaching again.
In the state of Texas.
Yes, Wade Phillips, back at it again.
How old is he now?
Oh, he is nearing 70.
I was going to guess at least 70. 76.
Dang.
Got to be one of the oldest head coaches out there in any sport. Any level.
It's going to be a sad day when he passes, honestly, because we'll have gone from bum to him, and there's nobody who's as engaging, I think, as either one of them to follow.
I just remember when he was with the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
And how mediocre of a time that was.
An NFL head coach, he has not been good. He's been very meh. But as a defensive coordinator, he's stellar.
Well, I mean, Wade Phillips had a real kind of up and down run as a Cowboy. I mean, I say mediocre, like he did get to playoffs a couple of times, but he also was fired halfway through his season.
Mm-hmm.
He made it 3.5, which these days, if you get 3.5, good for you. At one spot when you're struggling, but still had won 2 division championships and was still fired halfway through the next year after winning the division. But like every other coach over the last 26, 27 years, a Dallas Cowboys coach can't get past the divisional round of the playoffs. Well, We got a lot to talk about today, a lot about the Batcats. AJ is not here today. He's out sick. So we have postponed Stump the Shaw until another show. Whenever he gets back, we'll play. We'll play another round. I'm still working on prizes, which those conversations have been had with a few people that might be able to hook us up with some prizes.
For contestants beyond me?
Yeah.
Wow. Let's do it.
Or we could just turn it into a summer of can Troy stump the Shaw?
Painful.
We'll talk a little Caitlin Clark as well, a little Dan Hurley. There's a couple of pretty big basketball stories out there today that I find them to be pretty interesting that have turned into a couple of debates. So Troy and I will go back and forth on those a little bit later on, but let's start with K-State baseball as they go 0-2 in their Super Regional from Charlottesville, Virginia. They lose 7-4 on Friday, 10-4 on Saturday. They went in 2 wins away from the College World Series. They unfortunately end their run 2 wins away from the College World Series. And coming up in hour number 2, we'll take a look at the future of K-State baseball, reaching expectations. Did they do that in 2024? But just looking back at this Super Regional, first of all, I just want to mention how cool it was for K-State to get there. Because if you want to talk where momentum was at the end of the regular season, where momentum was at the end of their run in the Big 12 tournament going 1-2, nobody expected this. So there's already an expectation, right? Compared to where K-State was at the beginning of the year, heading into the year, expectations compared to where K-State was at the end of the regular season, it was different. You thought they had a good chance at least I thought they had a good chance of getting in. They did as a 3 seed. Not a whole lot of 3 seeds get to the Super Regionals, and it turns out this year quite a bit. Quite a few did. West Virginia, boy, they may have had more heartbreak than we did in the way they got bounced out of their Super Regional. First of all, that game 1, I mean, their pitcher throws a complete game over 140 pitches. Who was it? I can't remember who. Derek Clark, maybe? Is that his name?
So. Yeah.
And then gets walked off on, North Carolina comes from behind, a couple of home runs, just gut-wrenching. Meanwhile, for K-State, I think I can put this simply. They definitely had what it took to go win that series. It's just not enough happened. There wasn't enough clutch for K-State to go win a couple of games. I don't really have a whole lot to, in any way criticize decision-making or because it's, K-State does what they do. No philosophy changed for this coaching staff in these 2 games. And there was one thing I was surprised about, and that's when K-State was able to tie it up at 4 with the home run from David Bishop in game 1. And I thought, okay, maybe at that point where you're in the 7th inning, you have a tie ball game. Is that where you go to Tyson Neighbors or Ty Rule? They decided not to. Blake Dean comes in. He struggled. And then, of course, the 3-run homer, and, that was all she wrote for that first game. Quite honestly, I was actually pretty pleased about the pitching. I don't really have too many criticisms about the pitching because that was the best offense. If you're K-State pitching, you got the opposite of what your offense faced in that Arkansas game. Because Hagen Smith was K-State's worst nightmare, according to how good he is, the numbers, what K-State struggled with, worst nightmare. For K-State pitching, having to go through that against that offense, batter by batter by batter, should have been their worst nightmare. Now, K-State's team ERA was 7.94. But give credit to Virginia with their clutch hitting in game 2, where they made all their plays with 2 outs. I think K-State pitching did a lot of good things. Some mistakes did catch up with them a few times. There are a few, 4-pitch walks that would just, really frustrate you. K-State walks 11 batters in this series. They struck out 13. Now, that ratio, you wanted that to be a lot better. A lot better. But Virginia was so good with just contact, fouling off pitches. They could protect the strike zone. But, I mean, Owen Borma was really good. Jackson Wentworth, I thought, was really good. Tyson Neighbors through 2 innings gives up the 1 run. Just the walk started add up on him and, had a few things to grind through. J.J. Slack, I wish he got more of an opportunity because I think in his career for K-State does, I believe, come to an end. But, he was really fun to watch this year. It was just a couple of instances in the bullpen is where it got away from K-State. It did. It was the offense that I was hoping would be much better. I think it should have been much better. Just going by statistics, I didn't think Virginia's pitching staff was any better than K-State's. I didn't think it was any deeper than K-State's. But when we look back at this, and I'm sure I'll remember it more than some, because I'm just, I was a member of the media, I'm much more attached to this team. What I'll probably remember from this is that just the lack of consistency, of course, but also, both starters for Virginia were able to settle in. After giving up some early runs, they did a really good job of settling in. K-State didn't protect the strike zone as much as they should have, and just couldn't get those string of hits. Brady Day struggled. Chuck Ingram once again struggled. In this series, you only had 2 guys that hit over 300, Brennan Jones and Kyan Lotus. And Kyan did not play in Game 1. He played Game 2 and had a triple and a home run. Just didn't have enough. Just didn't have enough. But here's the most frustrating part of that, though. When I say they didn't have enough, they almost had everything. Game 2 and all of those fly balls to the warning track was maddening because they were just fractions of whatever away from having like 4 or 5 home runs in that second game, and K-State is in a much better spot. But they could do enough to tie it up. They just didn't have enough to take the lead.
My frustration, and I'm going to flip it because you talked about the pitching and that you felt that it was good enough. My disappointment comes from the fact that, especially on Saturday afternoon, the amount of 2-out opportunities that Virginia got throughout both games, actually, but especially Saturday, where they turned in all their runs when there were 2 outs in innings. Unable to get the pitches necessary to get out of jams. That was frustrating to me.
And that was something that they had in Fayetteville.
Yes.
That 2-strike pitch to go get that strikeout. But again, you're talking about a big difference in what you were facing offensively and how much contact Virginia got. I mean, so many foul balls. It was hard to just get a pitch by them that they weren't taking.
Right.
Because they were fouling everything off, it seemed like. A swing and a miss for Virginia just felt rare. But that's compliments on how good that team is. I was worried about K-State giving up the home run. And K-State gave up 2. Mm-hmm. I think that's a pretty big win. Mm-hmm. That's a sign to me of especially like Tyson Neighbors. Tyson gives up a home run once in a while. That's maybe his one flaw. I mean, he's got, and I say flaw. I mean, he's such a talented guy that has just that heat he brings. But sometimes he gives up the home run. Gave up a couple against Arkansas, but he didn't give up any.
Listen, a lot of times that is just straight out fastball on fastball hitter. I mean, that you're going to see that, for crying out loud. Paul Skeens and Shohei Ohtani last week are a prime example. First time around, Skeens gets the victory. The second time around, Ohtani tattoos him. It happens.
And I also thought there was a couple of times K-State just in the field kind of just ran into some bad luck. Like there was 2 or 3 times where Virginia was able to get a base runner on because of a super high chopper, and there just wasn't a play.
Difference in playing at home versus playing on the road a little bit there. They know what their field is able to do. And, by the way, natural grass field versus playing on turf.
What do you think the players prefer? This has been a topic, right, in
Yes.
sports, like especially in the pros, because of the number of knee injuries you see now because, and the blame is the turf. And more specifically, the blame is in specific stadiums like MetLife Stadium. So many people say that's the worst place to play. It's the worst turf, too many injuries.
Well, the problem is all the bodies that are buried under it.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Hoffa reference.
But don't you think like baseball players, because Twitton Family Stadium it's all turf.
Mm-hmm.
The entire field is turf. Every square inch of that field is turf. You think they would prefer to still play on the grass and the dirt?
Oh, I think so. It's just the natural feel to it.
That's what you play on all your life.
It is. It is. I mean, when you consider that at this point, it's very limited, the number of turf fields in Major League Baseball. Tampa. And I don't know that anybody else has, because nobody else has a dome anymore, the way that they used to be structured.
There was one person that I thought just looked so good in this super regional and has just impressed me all season long with not just his play, but also just his improvement from last year to this year. And if I had to pick like the most improved player and my personal player of the year, he doesn't have the best numbers on the team. But to me, my player of the year is Brendan Jones. The growth that he made from last year, his aggressiveness on the bases. Of course, his play in the field is stellar and made some great plays this year. He was the best base stealer in America. His batting average, let me see, I got some numbers here somewhere. Let me get these pulled up over here a little bit, over here closer to my eyes. Brendan Jones last year hit .238. This year he was .303. And he's a junior, and boy, would I love to have him back. I'm not sure where his status is, like, for the draft, where he would go. I haven't seen him on any rankings, but could he be, I don't know if he's top 15, but I could see his status definitely rising because of this season. Mm-hmm. He was great. Brendan Jones was great. He was my favorite player this year. Was phenomenal. Well, we still got a lot to talk about when it comes to the Batcats. We're going to save this for hour number 2 because a couple of discussions we need to have, and that is the expectations. Did K-State check some boxes this year with expectations? And what does the future hold for K-State baseball? What's next? What's in store for next year? What do they have potentially coming back? We'll talk all about that in hour number 2. When we come back, let's catch up on some K-State basketball and K-State football. A lot of recruiting headlines to catch up on. That's coming up next on The Game. Troy, I thought for a moment you were doing a Everlong Game Sports Update remix. Kind of looking forward to hearing it.
At least it would have changed up things.
Yeah, I don't find something a little different once in a while. We're back on The Game. Mitch Fortner and Troy Coverdale. No AJ Shaw, so that means no Stump the Shaw today, but we'll be playing it at some point this week whenever AJ gets back to us. Hopefully he gets better soon. You mentioned, so tonight's first pitch at the K is 7:10, so are they going back to that?
Yeah, they did that last summer as well, where it was the first couple months of the season, and once school is out, then move them back to 7:10s.
Gotcha. I guess I didn't notice last year. I just thought the 6:40s was just going to be more of a home game change. Mm-hmm. That started last year. I guess I assumed I thought it was all of last year.
No, it would be. I'm actually a fan of that 6:40. I think it actually plays out really nice. But you pick up an extra half hour now doing it this way to get rid of the summer heat, I guess. That would be
supposed to be hot this weekend.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Just in time for them to go west again.
You ever seen the Yankees play in person?
Yes.
It's all right.
I've not seen them at Yankee Stadium. I've seen them at the K.
It means more when you're at Yankee Stadium.
Of course it does. Which makes it interesting, by the way. Dodgers fans took over that place this weekend.
I saw that they needed it was basically a parade, or like a march.
Yes.
Rather. It was Dodger fans walking down some street by Yankee Stadium, and they had an NYPD escort.
Which, given some of the issues that have taken place outside of Dodger Stadium, that's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, just limit how many are driving.
I mean just the fights.
Oh, I thought you were referencing the car that caught fire in their parking lot.
Oh, heck no. No, I'm talking about some of the fights over the years that have occurred at Dodgers games. They've outdone the Bronx.
So that couldn't have just been all Dodgers fans that traveled.
No,
it had to be local folks, but the NYC is a melting pot of the melting pot.
And at this point, mostly fans who have ties to the Dodgers through their grandparents.
Once again, we want to congratulate former K-State quarterback Adrian Martinez. He is the 2024 UFL Most Valuable Player. He'll be playing for the championship against the San Antonio Brahmas. That's coming up this Sunday in St. Louis for a 4 o'clock kickoff. So need something to do this weekend, go head out to St. Louis and watch Adrian Martinez, 9 a.m., not throw interceptions and win a championship. Okay. Do want to touch on some other topics for K-State athletics because this has been a pretty big weekend for the Cats recruiting. We touched on this gentleman last week. That's Coleman Hawkins, who is the number one player left in the transfer portal when it comes to all the rankings. He is the best player left. What are the chances K-State lands him? Well, this weekend I would have said pretty good, and I still stand at pretty good. But if you're K-State, you wanted to wrap that up this weekend while he's on the visit, so he doesn't visit somewhere else. Coleman Hawkins, a 6'10 wing who has played his entire career at Illinois, will have a year of eligibility left, and what a fit that would be. What a cherry on top for K-State's recruiting class if 10 can get him. The last two recruits that they've landed, Chor and what was Chor the last one? Now I'm kind of questioning my timeline here. No, Chor and Ugata Nyensu. There we go. After that, I'm like, man, is there any NIL money left? Do we have any left for any other sports?
Right.
What's the account look like? Do we got that checkbook balanced? No, I mean, I think there's got to be plenty left if they can't attract Coleman Hawkins. There were rumors that he was asking for $2 million. I believe it was Jeff Goodman that said that those claims are not exactly true. It's more about the fit, which I totally get it. Like, of course he's going to go get his, right? He's got the status. He's got the love that can generate that kind of cash that he's looking for. But at the same time, he was in the NBA draft process. He withdrew his name at the deadline. He has pretty clear plans. Those plans are to work on what everybody who was giving him advice said to work on and find that fit. Well, if you remember anything about what happened last year and the changes that were made to the offense, to the identity, the kind of players they want to attract with that offense, this is that case in point on what you're wanting. And Jerome Tang, by the way, has a bit of a track record with sending guys to the league. So this should check a lot of boxes for Coleman Hawkins. But there's now a little bit of a twist. He's not done with visits. A week from today, he'll be visiting LSU. I don't remember if LSU was a school I mentioned on Friday. I just started throwing out schools. I was like, just to prove a point. He is the top recruit left in the portal. He is a top 20 player. I think at the last On 3, he was number 17. And I started mentioning schools that still could use a guy like him. I don't know if LSU is one of them, but SMU was. And I think he also still has interest in them. I think Louisville's done. He was supposed to visit Louisville. He ended up not going to the Cardinals instead visited Manhattan. But the thing is, Louisville has 13 scholarship players. There's really no more room. There's not any room for Coleman Hawkins. There is in Manhattan, Kansas. There is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So that's where we're at right now. Most likely waiting at least a week until he is done with his visit in Baton Rouge, and we'll see what he does next. I've been hearing Doug McDaniel has been actually pretty hands-on, like a Marquise Noel did a couple of years ago, in the recruiting. And it's not uncommon for a player to help recruiting. He's just been a lot more active than some, which I like to hear that. I like that leadership. As your point guard, got to be your leader, right? All right, here's some other pieces as well for K-State recruiting, and the last two pieces are football. I wasn't sure if K-State was done with the portal or not in football. Well, according to this weekend, they were not. Colin Truitt, who is he's been a starter at UT Chattanooga for pretty much his career on the offensive line, committed to K-State. I think there's a good guess that they would be done with the portal now, but they have certainly done some work in helping out the depth of this offensive line. Because now you add Colin Truitt. You already added Easton Kilty, who could certainly be a starter. So now K-State probably feels like they're in a much better spot of having that 7-8 guy rotation when you add a couple of guys that have plenty of experience, like Kilty and like Truitt. I've kind of lost count of how many transfers are coming in for football out of the portal. Mm-hmm. And it was a higher number than I remembered. I still thought we were like at 5 or 6. This is number 9. Number 9 out of the portal. Let me give you the guys real quick. Taquan Roberson from UConn, quarterback. Dylan Edwards, running back, Colorado. Travis Bates, defensive end from Austin Peay. Just recently adding Jordan Dunbar from Rice. He's a corner. Dante Cephas, Penn State, wide receiver, should be a big-time player for K-State. I mentioned Kilty, and there's one more at linebacker, Alec Marinko. It's a lot of depth that they've picked up with the portal. There's one player that you do absolutely expect to be the game-changer type for K-State. That's Dylan Edwards. I think not too far behind in expectation is Dante Cephas. When it comes to Truitt and Kilty, I think they're kind of on the same level on difference makers. It feels like depth, but it's more like, no, these guys will definitely play. They'll definitely play. Oh, and I should definitely throw in the equation, I think I didn't mention him, but Ball State safety Jordan Riley. He is also one I'm thinking start, be a Covey Savage type. He's also playing the same position, and he's going to go hit somebody. Dylan Edwards kind of took the lead on who I'm excited to watch the most. Jordan Riley is second place. Mm-hmm. I should have mentioned him earlier, but Jordan Riley is a dude as well that you expect to see on the field quite a bit.
You're right, though, about it feels like that it should be less in number than what it really is, but 9 transfers in the portal.
Big number.
It just, yeah, it seems like that, things have just been relatively quiet for the most part.
Well, when you pick up Dylan Edwards, it's hard.
True.
It's hard, especially when you already know what K-State had.
Well, and more so just the timing.
Well, yeah,
we've kind of gotten away from
spread out. Yeah. And it kind of, I wouldn't say overshadowed because this guy should definitely get the attention he deserves. But out of the high school ranks, K-State did pick up this weekend an in-state kid. Mm-hmm. And that's Martell Jackson, who's also a corner. And by the way, how about this steam that K-State has picked up with Derby High School? Dylan Edwards coming over via the transfer portal. Martell Jackson is a junior who will be a senior for Derby High School. Mm-hmm. And will graduate in the class of 2025. It'll be a part of K-State's 2025 class, which now has 4 players. He also visited with the other 3. Dylan Duff, Weston Polk, Will Kemna were all in town that visited. But he was also a part of that camp. It was that first camp of the string of camps K-State's having right now with bringing in potential recruits. And that recruitment, which as far as I've heard, went pretty quickly. The offer comes in camp. He visits pretty quickly. Deal is done. Got that first Power 5 offer, Power 4. It's K-State. He's a Cat. All happened pretty quickly. I would assume that's pretty ideal if you're this coaching staff, especially with in-state guys.
Absolutely.
And how, so far, I don't know everything. That's why we have DY on. That's why we have Drew from K-State Online on to talk about these things. It's been a bit bumpy, I guess, for the in-state recruiting, but like Lincoln Cure, you would still think, that 5-star tight end is still thinking Cats, and hopefully he still is. All right, let's take another break. That'll end the recruiting talk, but good stuff. Good work this weekend for K-State Athletics. Just hoping it gets a lot better with Coleman Hawkins, because I'm telling you, sky is certainly the limit if Coleman Hawkins is on your team. He may take the cake as like the guy of the class, and he's the last one to join. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the basketball talk. Troy will tell us, should Caitlin Clark have made the U.S. Olympic basketball team? I'm kind of back and forth on this, but we'll talk more when we come back. Caitlin.
Oh, jeez.
Why aren't you playing for America?
Oh, boy.
Seriously, what happened? She was supposed to be the next Michael Phelps. Caitlin Clark not on Team USA for the Olympics. I don't think I was expecting her to make it. That's like one of those things, it's like, first of all, she already has a feud with Diana Taurasi.
Right, which just got amplified.
Yeah, and I know it's a committee that picks who represents Team USA on a team like this. But when Diana Taurasi has played on 5 teams and is about to play for her 6th, don't you think she probably has a little bit of pull? And she's not about to let Caitlin Clark on the team, is she?
Well, the expectation as well that this will likely be the last one for Taurasi, given her age.
Just trying to keep her distance from the GOAT of women's basketball.
Okay.
Diana's 42.
Yeah.
I think Caitlin's 22.
Mm-hmm.
Can't let a 22-year-old show you up.
Oh, brother.
It's not uncommon. I don't think it's uncommon for a rookie
to not make the team.
I'm saying to make the team. It's rare for a rookie to make the team.
No, it is exceptionally rare for a WNBA rookie to make that team.
Because I think all but 3 players on that team have been on an Olympic team before. And the USA women's national team has been dominant for many decades.
Well, to the point, and I brought this up on social over the weekend, to the point that Becky Hammond, who at the time was playing for the New York Liberty and was stellar at point guard for them, actually has dual citizenship. She picked up a Russian citizenship to get herself to be eligible to play in Olympic Games.
I wasn't upset that Caitlin Clark didn't get on the Olympic team because she will be on the 1 in 4 years. And she's going to be on a lot of them probably, I would assume. Unless something crazy was to happen. But my thought process was like, I kept going back to like, how would NBC pick a team? Because if NBC, who has the broadcast rights for the Olympics, how would they go about this? And if they had to say, Caitlin Clark is absolutely on that team.
There are questions about that. There are questions that NBC essentially pulled no strings in this matter.
I don't think they did. But I think they should have, because NBC is paying like $1.5 billion.
And what I'm saying is that if they laid back and didn't pull any strings, what's it give you their thoughts on the matter?
Well, and I know it was taken as a joke when I said that Caitlin Clark's supposed to be the next Michael Phelps, but let's think about that for a second. What are the most watched sports during the Olympics? Well, certainly swimming is one of them. Gymnastics would be, those are 1 and 2. But both of those sports had some name recognition involved over the last, let's see, how far are we going back here? 15, 16 years?
Well, just look at what you do have coming up this summer. Back in swimming is Katie Ledecky.
So she is back in.
She is back in.
Because I was about to say, because I didn't know about that, and I was like, what name recognition does USA have? They don't really have any star power. Katie Ledecky is really good, and she had that one Olympics where she was really good, but how long ago was that? Was that 8 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. In gymnastics is Simone Biles.
And she's
competing.
Back.
She's back as well.
She's back as well and dominating.
Okay. So one of my main points then, no longer worth mentioning now because you kind of trumped me there. But
your point is well taken. Yes, you want eyeballs on the game.
Well, I thought once you're done, you're done. Because Ledecky wasn't in the Olympics 4 years ago, right?
Oh, no, she was.
Oh, she was. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, then I guess I just don't remember her. But I was like, my thought was you do not get better, though, than Caitlin Clark at this point, especially when you're continuing to further the game. I think if the WNBA, you want Caitlin Clark with Team USA because nobody's done better for the women's basketball game than Caitlin Clark has over the last 3 years.
The flaw with it is, and this is essentially the thought process that USA Basketball had behind it from what I'm hearing in the background. And that is that it was, do we take the heat before the Olympics for not having her and let all of that cool down once everybody pays attention to what's going on in the games? Or do we take the heat following every game when she barely sees any playing time?
But here's what I want to add to that. So my point about name recognition no longer really valid. But NBC, if you look at the numbers for the Olympics for the summer games, the numbers have been going down. They're not getting better. Yet the price tag for NBC to continue with their rights deal is going up. So their price tag is going up for what they're paying for this. The ratings continue to go down. If you just look at the numbers for the opening ceremony, which is typically the most popular part of the Olympics, that's when they get their best ratings because it's more of a show, it's more of a spectacle. Mm-hmm. Those numbers have dropped quite a bit ever since it peaked in 2008.
Part of that, I think, is just the aspect that fans want to see the events more so than they want to see the stories. And NBC for years, ABC was the predecessor in doing this, has always been about putting the stories first. It's the Rune Arledge approach to all of it. And whether it's presentation of the Olympics, presentation of Monday Night Football, the stories were always the bigger thing, especially when ABC had the Olympics. And NBC just kept on doing that same thing. And one of the big complaints and one of the big things that I always chuckle at, because I've got friends that live close enough, people that are able to get the Canadian broadcasts enjoy those a lot more because it's just about the events. It's not about all the stories that go into the athletes.
I do think it's helpful because the Olympics are in France.
Paris.
Yeah, Paris. They're ahead of us obviously in time, but they're obviously going to be in major events, going to put the USA on a good time so we can all watch it live. There's no tape delay like Tokyo. That wasn't that long ago. If you are going to watch it live, it's 2 a.m.
Right.
So that does help. And I think that may help the ratings, but there isn't a bigger boost when it comes to ratings in the Olympics than Caitlin Clark. They would skyrocket. WNBA attendance ratings, that's already evidence. Hour to the game coming up next.